nerds were people that just like read books. Yo, why are you trying to get an education, son? And it's just very interesting to me that now there's a name for it. But it's also the same, like when I was a kid growing up, there was no, you weren't biracial or multiracial. Like if you were lucky, you were mulatto. Like if you were really lucky, that's what they called you. But usually it was like Oreo or zebra. So now we have these terms that are so much more like nurturing rather than hurtful, and then you cry and then you hit the kid in the mouth with a rock, which is great.
I really just spoke to the resilience that's been a big part of our culture for a very long time.
So, you're expanding the frontier of what blackness is. And the thing about that, people aren't happy a lot of the time. When you express yourself, you choose a different story. I think the Afropunk and the Blerd, both categories of artist or person, question the story. The story the family is giving them, the story the society is giving them, the story the genre is giving them. We question the story.
And that's, to me, has always been what Afropunk, the expression of Blerds has always been. Somebody who pushed the mainstream despite what anybody had to say about it. That I think that the civil rights movement was a bunch of Blerds saying, we're not gonna take this shit no more. When you think about the origins of some of the music that you've heard, it was people taking that thing and flipping it and saying, this is who I am, despite what you might think I am. Despite what your eyes tell you, what you hear from me is something different. That we've always been pushing the culture, we've always been pushing the envelope as to what works for us. And it never has to, and we're never resting on our laurels. We're always trying to push it forward. No matter what it is that we are trying to do. And like Vernon was saying, it's like people are upset, but you upsetting the apple cart. But I don't give a fuck anymore. Let's just do it.
I think like fairly recently, there's been kind of a resurgence of, I guess almost like the Black Arts Movement to me. I think, the Black Arts Movement was like a parallel movement to like the Black Power struggle, right? We just celebrated, 50 years of Star Trek, right? You know what else is? It's the 50th anniversary of Black Power being uttered too in Mississippi. During like the March Against Fear by Stokely Carmichael. That is also the 50th anniversary too. Right?
Number one, I kind of love the idea of Martin Luther King watching Star Trek. The idea of him saying to Coretta, I like that show.
And with the kids, like.
And the other part of it is him entering a conversation about representation and of the future, and that idea is really crucial. And I think the other thing is relentless honesty and creativity. And the phrase "giving oneself permission," we have to continually give ourselves permission to speak our truth, whatever they are.
Whereas like people who are doing on the ground organizing are also creating these spectral spaces in various types of genres. So I think that they definitely play off of each other, and they are just particular nodes of the same type of like cultural expression. Because we've always fought through the culture, right? So that's what I think at least.
I think for me, for comics specifically, it's a place to show that Blackness isn't just one thing. I think there's a variety of different artists, Black creators that are breaking the boundaries of what Blackness is supposed to look like, or what we're supposed to be doing, or how we're supposed to act. And I think that's progress, and I think that's important, and I see it in music as well as comics. And then on a more micro level, when we think about nerds, for me as a Black woman, before I discovered like Black girl nerds, it was a really kind of lonely place. Like I did a dissertation on comics, nobody in my immediate circle really cared about that. And then I was able to find my people, right? And I was able to find a community that really pushes me, inspires me, encourages me. And I think all of those things are progress, and we can find strength within these cultures and within the artistic expression of both of these different movements.
It's definitely a unique way of communication, and I think there is something spiritual, like you were saying, Ytasha, about it, because there's one thing I remember. Everybody in here saw Luke Cage, right? Yeah. If you haven't seen it yet, you need to rethink your life choices.
I'm just on episode 2, so don't tell me what
Leave now and go and watch.
This is not a spoiler. This is just a general comment about the whole thing. There's one thing that I felt throughout the entire piece, and that's something that you guys always mentioned, and there were moments that I felt were just for us. Just for Blerds, just for Afropunks. Like when he called those two guys, plug 1 and plug 2, I was like little things like that. That's where I felt like this is hitting us on a wavelength and a tone. I guess I don't know if that's a proper musical term. It's hitting us on a tone and a level and a chord. That's what that chord. Everybody would go, oh, as they were watching it, because it was for watching. Jennings.
Now, when you talked about the music piece too, I think that there's a relationship with respect to intuition in many ways. And I think when we look at the Afropunk culture and blur culture, and I like to contextualize a lot of it in Afrofuturism, there's this valuing of the intuition where it balances out logic and trying to, and embracing that they are both valuable information portals, so to speak, to help navigate our lives. And music is a very easy touchstone to helping to kind of communicate some of those things that might be in the subconscious. I just feel like a lot of times in our westernized culture, it values logic to the point of maybe not embracing some of the intuitive ways of understanding ourselves that we're very much a part of African cultural traditions or indigenous cultural traditions and embraced in a lot of spaces.
Being Black is this, you have to be interested in this, you have to act this way, talk this way, walk this way. It goes back to a lot of what I'm always talking about. When I first heard, Bad Brains, when I was in high school, and first heard Fishbone and then Living Color, it was like something clicked inside me. It was like, oh, this is the music that I've been waiting for my whole life. And I not to say that I didn't like other types of music, but it was all of a sudden I had permission to be this sort of Black person I always wanted to be, but wasn't really allowed to be. Because people, I hadn't told this story until very recently, but when I was in high school, I wanted to be in a rock band. I really wanted to be in a rock band. This was the 80s, and I went to, my best friend was this white kid who was like really into AC/DC and Judas Priest, which is how I got into like hard rock and metal. So I wanted to be in this hard rock band. I went out and bought a guitar, like on a Saturday afternoon. And Monday, I came back to school, I talked to these guys, and I said, I bought a guitar, and I'm going to be in a rock band. I'm going to start a rock band. And this white dude looked at me and he goes, niggers don't play rock and roll. And I put that guitar down and I never played it. I never learned how to play it, right? And it was like this devastating moment. And I was looking around waiting for somebody to defend me, and nobody defended me, and I was like crushed. And then like 2-3 years later, I heard Bad Brains, and I was like, well, the guy who said that could have kicked my ass anyway, because he's this big white dude, but that's beside the point. But suddenly I was like, he was wrong. Like Dr. No is one of the greatest guitar players of all time, Hendrix, one of the greatest guitar players of all time. Guy at the other end of the table, one of the greatest guitar players of all time,
I want to mention Jack Kirby just for a second. Because when I was reading comics back in the 70s, there were like no Black superheroes. And I remember the letters, they had like the letters pages, and people were pissed. People were pissed. They were like, We're sick and tired of just seeing these little lily white dudes in tights. So, what Jack Kirby did, he didn't just make a white superhero and put a black face on him. He imagined a country called Wakanda. And this country, Wakanda, was so technologically advanced, it was never colonized by Europeans. It had a technology that kept the country cloaked, so no Europeans actually even knew where it was. And now Ta-Nehisi Coates has written the Black Panther. So we're doing this, but we're also building on the work of other people. It's not just about us.
Really wonderful book by Robert D.G. Kelly called Freedom Dreams. It's about the Black radical imagination and this notion that no revolution starts without imagining the future, you know? And so this notion of imagination is actually extremely key to it, right? So anybody ever been to like an MLK monument? Is it where the mountaintop is, the one that he writes about, he talks about? You've seen that mountaintop? There's not one at the mountaintop because it's not in this particular space. So he was imagining a future space that's not even here yet. This notion of us all coming together. That was speculative fiction.
And I just also have to say, and he said that I've been there.
Right, exactly. That he's actually like been in that space, right? So this imagining space. Also, Octavia Butler was very much about writing herself or writing us into the future. You know, this notion of like the shape of an absence, or even the West African concept nomo, right? N-O-M-M-O, which is about speaking and writing and creating yourself into existence through word and through pictures and through this type of thing.